Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Ellis, and for nearly 40 years in geriatric medicine, I've stood beside the beds of thousands of older adults, some who passed peacefully in their sleep, and others whose passing we wish we could have prevented if only we had seen the signs sooner. You see, death during sleep isn't always as gentle as we imagine. Sometimes it doesn't come because it's time. Sometimes it comes because a warning was missed, a small habit overlooked. And if you're over 70 or caring for someone who is, I invite you to sit with me for just a few minutes today. We're not going to talk about rare diseases or complicated treatments. We're going to talk about 4 simple things, 4 everyday choices that could literally save your life while you sleep. Part 1. Nighttime blood pressure, the silent killer. I remember a patient of mine, let's call her Margaret. She was 79, sharp as ever, loved her garden, and never missed a checkup. Her daytime blood pressure? Perfectly fine. In fact, she prided herself on keeping it under control without too many medications. But one morning, her daughter found her unresponsive. It was just past 3 o'clock. That moment stayed with me, because what we found later wasn't a mystery illness. It wasn't even a new diagnosis. It was something most people, even doctors, often overlooked. Her blood pressure wasn't dipping at night, as it should have. You see, during sleep, the heart is meant to rest. Blood pressure naturally lowers so the cardiovascular system can recover from the stress of the day. But for some older adults, that dip never comes. In fact, for some, blood pressure climbs even higher during the night, and the heart, already aging and often overworked, quietly reaches its limit. What makes this especially dangerous is that it's silent. There's no warning bell, no chest pain, no dizziness, just stillness. That's why I now recommend what's called 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitoring for many of my patients. It's a small, wearable device that tracks pressure patterns day and night. Often, it's not the daytime readings that tell the story, it's those quiet hours after midnight, when the body should be resting, but instead is under invisible strain. We had another patient, Patricia, 81 years old. Her doctor suggested a 24-hour test just to be cautious. It turned out that her blood pressure was spiking at 3 o'clock IME regularly, something she never would have known. With a simple shift in medication timing, a walk after dinner, and less salt in her evening meals, the spikes stopped. She's alive today because of that test. This is not about fear, it's about awareness. If you've never had your blood pressure checked at night, especially if you wake up tired, have vivid dreams, or find yourself rising suddenly in the middle of the night, it's worth a conversation with your doctor. Because your heart has worked hard for you every single day of your life, it deserves to rest, and so do you. Part 2. Interrupted breathing during sleep, when the body forgets to breathe. Some stories still echo in my memory, not because of how dramatic they were, but because of how quiet they seemed, until it was too late. Albert was 76 when he first came to see me, a retired truck driver, proud and stoic, with hands that still carried the strength of decades behind the wheel. He didn't complain much, just said he'd been feeling more tired lately. Probably just age, he shrugged. But his wife, Marlene, had noticed something more troubling. She said he would stop breathing for moments in the night, not snoring, stopping, silent, still, and then suddenly gasping. That's when I gently explained something many older adults don't realize. Sleep apnea, what we call interrupted breathing during sleep, isn't just a nuisance, it's a real, quiet danger. When we sleep, our breathing patterns become the foundation of everything. Heart rhythm, oxygen flow to the brain, tissue repair, even emotional regulation. But in people with undiagnosed sleep apnea, those breaths are repeatedly interrupted. The body is jolted awake again and again, sometimes without the person even realizing it. And with every interruption, the heart is put under strain. Over time, that strain adds up. It's like asking a tired engine to keep restarting all night long. Albert agreed to do a sleep study, reluctantly at first. The results were clear: moderate obstructive sleep apnea. We fitted him with a CPAP machine. It wasn't easy in the beginning. He joked about feeling like a robot, but after a few weeks something changed. He started waking up more alert, he no longer nodded off in the afternoon, his heart rhythm steadied, and his wife finally slept through the night too. Many seniors think daytime fatigue is just part of getting old. But sometimes it's your body whispering, "I didn't get what I needed last night. I kept fighting to breathe." The signs can be subtle: dry mouth in the morning, headaches, tossing and turning, waking up gasping, or even just the feeling that you slept long but not well. If you sleep alone, it can be harder to catch, but you can still listen. How do you feel when you wake up? Are you rested, or are you still tired day after day? Good sleep is not just about hours, it's about oxygen, rhythm, depth, and if your body is constantly interrupted, it never truly rests, it simply survives the night. This too is something we can address, and we must, because what happens in your sleep doesn't stay there. It follows you into your mornings, your memory, your moods, your heart. And that brings us to something even fewer people talk about: the air itself. The very breath you draw in night after night. Let's talk about that next. Part 3. Poor bedroom air quality. The breath you don't know you're taking. Let me ask you something we rarely pause to consider. What are you breathing in while you sleep? We spend nearly a third of our lives in bed, and yet when I visit patients' homes or reflect on my own, I'm often struck by how little attention we give to the air in our bedrooms. During the day, we think about pollution, allergens, or city fumes. We crack windows when we cook. We avoid traffic when we can. But when night falls, when our bodies are most vulnerable, we close the door, shut the window, and drift into sleep without a second thought for the air that will carry us through the night. I once cared for a man named Walter, 76 years old, who lived alone in a quiet neighborhood. He was the kind of man who kept his home spotless, drank the same cup of coffee every morning, and prided himself on being independent. But over time, his daughter noticed changes. He seemed dazed in the mornings, slower to speak, confused in ways that hadn't been there before. At first, we considered dementia, medication side effects, blood pressure changes. But nothing explained the strange heaviness that crept in overnight and lifted by afternoon. One weekend, his daughter, a nurse, brought over a small air quality monitor. She placed it near his bed before he fell asleep and in the morning checked it. The carbon dioxide level was nearly double the recommended safe range. His windows were always shut. No fan, no airflow. The air in his room was still and quiet, but it was slowly suffocating him, and it had been for years. What people forget is that the older we get, the more sensitive our lungs become. Circulation slows, immune systems weaken. What a younger person might shrug off, an older body has to work harder to overcome. And while we sleep when the body is supposed to restore and repair, it can't do that if it's battling invisible toxins, dust, pet dander, mold spores, chemical fragrances, even CO2 from our own exhalation. All of it quietly builds up in a sealed room, and the heart, already overworked from decades of service, must carry that burden while we're unaware. Walter didn't need an expensive machine to fix it, just a simple air purifier, a cracked window, even in winter, removing an old rug, letting the air circulate again. Within a week, he told me, his dreams had returned. He woke up clearer, more like himself. And more than that, he felt rested. Another patient, Louise, had morning fog for months. She blamed her age until we found black mold hiding behind the curtains. Moisture from the air conditioner had built up over the years. Once cleaned, the fog lifted. She called it a rebirth. Too often, we treat fatigue as inevitable. But sometimes, it's not age that's speaking. It's the room around us. If you wake up groggy, headachy, or feeling like you haven't truly slept, don't just look inward. Look around you. What's in your air? What's on your shelves, in your carpets, behind your curtains? Are you giving your lungs the same care you give your meals or medication? Sleep should be sacred. It's the time when the body restores what the day has worn down. But if, while you sleep, you are inhaling toxins and stale breath, then your rest becomes a quiet survival. Your healing is interrupted, and that interruption builds, night after night, until the body cannot keep up. And yet the air we breathe is only part of the story. There is one more signal that too often goes unnoticed because it looks peaceful, it looks calm, but sometimes it means the body is not at rest, but shutting down. Let's talk next about what it really means when someone stops moving in their sleep. Part 4. Stillness in sleep, when peace is not peaceful. There's something haunting about a bed that looks untouched in the morning. Sheets perfectly smooth, pillows unshifted, as if no one ever laid there at all. I remember a man named George. He was 84, a widower who had lived through more than most of us ever will. War, hardship, the loss of a child, and the long quiet of old age. His daughter came to see me one day, worried. "His bed looks the same every morning," she said. "He used to toss and turn. Now he wakes up in the exact same position. It's like he doesn't move at all anymore." She thought it might be a good sign, deep, undisturbed rest. But I knew better. You see, we are meant to move while we sleep. The body has its own quiet choreography. Small shifts to regulate pressure, to ease circulation, to reset the balance between organs and breath. These little movements are a sign of life, not just survival but vitality. When the body stops adjusting, it can mean the systems that usually protect us, our nervous system, muscle tone, blood pressure sensors, are beginning to shut down. Stillness that once seemed peaceful may, in truth, be the calm before the crisis. I ordered a few tests for George. What we found was early-stage heart block. His heart, especially at night, wasn't adjusting properly to pressure changes. His nervous system had slowed its response. That stillness wasn't rest, it was risk. After beginning a simple cardiac training regimen, short walks, hydration reminders, gentle stretches before bed, his nighttime movement returned. His daughter later told me, half laughing, half crying, "His blanket's a mess again. I never thought I'd be so relieved." This is something I urge every family to notice. Do the sheets look lived in when the morning comes? Has the pillow shifted? Is the blanket tossed? Or does it look too neat, too quiet? Stillness is not always serenity. Sometimes it's the body losing the strength to react. I had another patient, Eleanor, age 79, who prided herself on sleeping like a statue. But she was also on a high dose of nighttime sedatives, and over time her reflexes dulled, her circulation faltered, and her legs began to swell. Her body had lost the gentle nudges it needed to keep blood flowing through the night. We adjusted her medications, reintroduced light evening movement, and slowly her body remembered how to stir again, how to live even while asleep. Encouraging nighttime motion doesn't require machines or hospitals. It begins with small rituals, a bit of light stretching before bed, avoiding heavy sleeping pills unless absolutely necessary, keeping the room at a comfortable temperature that invites gentle repositioning. Staying hydrated also matters more than most people realize. Even a slight need to adjust to temperature or fluid shifts can stimulate the nervous system to keep its subtle rhythm alive. Stillness is sacred when it's a sign of peace. But when it becomes too total, too fixed, it can be something else entirely. The body, like the soul, needs to move, even when unconscious, to shift, to breathe, to whisper that it is still here, still trying. And so now we come to the heart of this message. These 4 things, blood pressure, breathing, air, and movement, may seem separate, but they are not. They are the 4 corners of the same bed, the space where life rests, recovers, or fades quietly away. Let's bring it all together. If you've stayed with me this far, I want to take a moment, perhaps the most important moment, and say thank you, not just for listening to the science or the stories, but for opening your heart to something we too often avoid, the truth that aging is not the end of growth. that even as our bodies slow down, our awareness can sharpen, deepen, expand. You see, in all my years as a physician, what has stayed with me most are not the emergencies, not the procedures, but the moments no one teaches you to expect. The still room in the early hours, the shape of a body in a bed that hasn't moved, the face of a daughter realizing her father isn't just tired, he's fading. What I've come to learn, what I wish I could teach every young doctor, is that the body rarely gives up without trying to be heard first. It speaks, not with words, but with rhythms, with breath, with restlessness, with quiet shifts in the dark that say, "I'm still here. Don't stop listening yet." The habits we've explored together, nighttime blood pressure, interrupted breathing, air quality, and the absence of movement during sleep, these aren't just clinical markers. They are invitations. Invitations to return to our bodies not as problems to fix, but as companions to care for. To ask with kindness, what are you holding tonight? What do you need in order to wake again tomorrow? So many people believe that dying in your sleep is a peaceful way to go, and yes, it can be, but not when it's preventable, not when it's the result of something your body tried to warn you about but no one thought to notice. I've held too many hands after the fact. I've stood beside too many beds that were too quiet, and I've whispered, sometimes aloud, sometimes only in my thoughts, if only we'd asked a few more questions, if only we'd paid attention to the sleep. But you, by being here, have already done something that most never do. You've looked into the night, not with fear, but with intention. You've opened the door to a different kind of aging, one where sleep is no longer an unknown, but a landscape you can learn to read. And what you read there can save your life, or the life of someone you love. You don't need to be a doctor to do this work. You just need to become an ally to your own body. Watch how you sleep, how you wake, how your energy feels as the day begins. Is your chest tight in the morning? Are your dreams vivid? Is the room stuffy, the sheets too still, your breath shallow? These are not random details. They are whispers of imbalance, early messengers of strain, and they are asking you gently, lovingly, to act. And no, you don't need to do everything at once. This is not about fear or overwhelm or perfection. This is about small adjustments with big consequences. Cracking a window, checking your oxygen, taking a short walk after dinner, saying no to unnecessary sleeping pills, asking your doctor about a 24-hour blood pressure monitor, letting your body move just enough at night to remember it is alive. These things may seem small, but life often hangs in the balance of the smallest things. I want you to know this: your sleep is not just a pause in your day. It is a sacred crossing, a place where your body renews itself, if only you allow it the conditions to do so. Don't let that crossing be clouded by neglect. Let it be lit with understanding. Let it become a doorway to more mornings, more life. And if something you heard today has stirred something in you, whether it's a memory, a concern, or simply a sense of curiosity, I hope you'll act on it. And I hope you'll share it. Because this message isn't just for you. It's for your siblings, your spouse, your neighbor down the hall. It's for every elder who still has stories to tell, but may not know how close they are to silence.